in BBC parlance to add a bit of balance to the elite end of the table. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to pass the mic along, and you can just say a few words about yourself, and if you just keep the mic there, just use that mic and pass
We go way back. I finished the West Highland Way race 3 times. First in 2010, in 2015, and then last year. Nicola?
I've done it 3 times, DNF'd once, finished twice. First time was 2016, yeah, I think.
Hi, I'm David McClure. I did the race 2013, I ran the race last year, and I'm going to be chasing James this year.
I hoped to do it in 2013, became injured through overtraining, which I realised obviously was my own fault, and I didn't listen to advice from other people because I knew best. It took me out for a good few years, and then I managed to crack it in 2016, and I'm hoping to do it for the 4th time this year.
Thank you. So we're just going to throw it over to the floor. I just want to have one little advisory. There are no stupid questions at all. You may have a question and think, oh, I can't get embarrassed to ask that one. Fire away. Everyone here will have had that question themselves. Probably these 4 people sitting here will have that question and never going to us. Okay, let's have the first question then. Oh, don't be shy. Come on.
David, will you keep your Strava thing?
Absolutely, but I won't be beating it this year. What I would say is that a good point to that is I would say try if you can for the first half of the race to try and take emotion out of the race. I didn't realise there's always a guy, there's always that guy, and I was never going to be that guy, but I was that guy. It was just a mixture of adrenaline and excitement, and I certainly hadn't planned it, and I won't be doing it this year.
Another question. Yes, hand up, yes.
I always carry too much stuff for any run that I go on, so I'd be really interested to hear from the panel as to how much or what size of pack they each individually take, because I'm sure everyone's different, but it'd be really useful to get some guidance as to what maybe a kind of mid norm might be in terms of size of pack.
Is this going to be your first time away?
It is, yes.
No, we'll start with you, we'll just go along that line.
Well, of course, the rule is always the wet weather gear, isn't it? But I mean, I've just done a race at the weekend, for instance, where you were DQ'd if you didn't have wet weather gear, and I thought I'd be clever and take out my waterproof trousers and took them back, and then they announced in the briefing that anybody without everything would be DQ'd, so I ended up starting the race 2 minutes late because I had to run back to the car to get my wet weather trousers in a heat wave. I tend to carry too much of stuff. I've always got extra nutrition bars and what have you, because I do suffer from getting a low carbohydrate and being hungrier than other people. I've always got another jumper tied around my waist in case I need it, because you can take clothes off but you can't put them on if you haven't got them. I now tend to carry a first aid kit, which I bought one of these small compact ones. Plenty of fluid. I carry 2 5 litres. One is the isotonic-y type stuff, and one's plain water. Some paracetamol, but nothing else. A penny that somebody gave me for good luck. I can't think of anything else that I carry. Obviously your phone. No, can't think of anything else. Foil blanket, yes, that's all stuffed down in bits that can be found. It's whatever you can get into your bag that you feel comfortable with. If you didn't have it with you, would you miss it? If you don't need it, then don't take it.
I think my advice would be to, certainly the first half of the race you're not going to need as much as you will for the second half of the race. I was quite surprised myself how much more fuel I needed to take on the second half, and make sure you train as much as you can with a pack with all the stuff in it. I don't think people do that. They tend to just take a pack for the length of the training run they're doing that day, whereas I would always try and pack it to at least the weight. I think a lot of people are starting to try and get their packs as light as they possibly can, and I think for a race this length and for the length it's going to, the time it's going to take you, you're better to be slightly heavier in terms of your pack than be go without.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the key thing for me with a pack is to make sure that the pack itself isn't moving around too much, because that once has caused me a bit of chafing. I did the CCC last year and there was quite a bit of kit involved in that, and I hadn't thought about it before I did it, so I turned up with a 5 litre pack and with a lot of kit, a lot more than you have to carry. But I managed to get it in. I mean, it was like 2 head torches, 2 sets of spare batteries, leg cover, waterproof leg cover, waterproof jacket, base layer spare, gloves, spare buff, spare hat, the whole lot, and I got it into Salmon 5 litre, and it didn't move about, it was absolutely fine. So I think for me that would be the max size pack that I'd use during a race.
I suppose for me, because I know the West Island Way now like the back of my hand, I'm much more comfortable travelling much lighter. So this year I actually didn't have a pack at all. Top tip for me was wearing a cycling jersey. So I've got the pockets in the back, so my foil blanket and my phone and a snack fit nicely in the 3 pockets. Using arm warmer sleeves instead of a long sleeve shirt for me works because it gets back to normal, like you can pull your sleeves on or up or down. My training includes mostly lots of hill walking with 2 dogs who have yet to learn how to carry their own stuff. So my packs when I'm out training tend to be massive rucksacks, usually of at least 20 pounds. So then when it came to running the West Island Way with very little, felt amazing. So training with stuff that's heavier, even if you're not going to need it, for me was something that really worked. And again, it comes back to what John and Helen were talking about as well. If you know where your crew are going to meet you and what they're going to have available to you, know that you can rely on that, or only have crew that you know you can rely on. So you don't need to be carrying 3 days worth of gels between Lindavra and Fort William, for example. But that's part of just the practice, I suppose, as well, knowing what honestly you're going to need during those segments.
Thank you. Bit of food for thought, yeah?
Yes, excellent, thank you.
Okay, great, yeah. Next question. Yes?
Hydration, I'm really confused about hydration. Some people say drink to thirst, others say thirst is a poor indication of your hydration. You should be drinking X amount per hour. I know Sean said drink to thirst. Is that the advice? I struggle, doesn't matter what we're in, I struggle drinking.
It's a very good question that a lot of first timers ask, isn't it? Is it your first time?
No, I've done it twice in DNF, once.
Done other others. We'll probably be showing in that in a minute, but let's go along the panel first and see what your panel is. Yes.
I'm definitely a drink to thirst. I'm a drink tailwind to thirst until I can't tolerate anything anymore, or I mix tailwinds, sort of alternate it with water. And because I am hypersensitive to caffeine, and it's how I get through most of my races, Coca-Cola as and when, with maybe hints of salt in, for me is that balance, but always to thirst.
Yeah, to thirst. Definitely. I can't think of another time where I wouldn't just drink to thirst.
See, I struggle to make the weights. I mean, twice up the tyre, I just managed to be, because I don't really, for some reason I don't get thirsty, I don't feel the need to drink. So,
well, maybe if you don't feel the need to, maybe you're, I mean, everybody's different. So what I think is maybe have a sort of a minimum amount, or sort of a maximum minimum, that window that James spoke about for your, like regards times, so that you have some kind of indication, and you sort of don't go below this amount, so that if you haven't taken anything to thirst, that you know that you've got to have 100 mils or whatever. But I think it's you probably work out if you're dehydrated. Hopefully not by the time you get to a way station.
Assuming, I mean, I drink enough first, I do drink, but it's not enough. I don't feel.
You can test. I mean, I don't know how exactly how to do it, but you can certainly Google this. You can work out, and I've never done it because, quite frankly, unlike James, I am really not into the stats and the facts and figures, but you can work it out. You can work out what your hydration should be in a race, and by weighing yourself during training in the way that you would do in the race. So if you could get into a little bit of geekery, you could probably start to factor it in.
Technophobe, I don't like.
James, he might help you out.
I don't feel I've got anything to add. I don't.
No, but do you drink to thirst, or do you drink
I drink to
500
thirst.
millilitres per hour?
I'm probably aware that I drink to thirst, but I don't. I think sometimes I don't drink enough because I'm more scared of running out of the water. And where the next checkpoint is. But I've got. I mean, as I say, I carry 2 500ml bottles.
I'm the same, but I come into checkpoints and people say, oh, I fill up, I go, it's nothing to help, I'm fine.
If it works for you, it works for you. I think, really, I mean, you know, they've said...
See, my concern is checkpoints in weight, just been underway.
But it's already, Sean's already said that nobody is going to get thrown out. You know, it's unless it's markedly wrong.
Some of that weight as well, though, is about if you've gained too much weight rather than losing weight, and that's a different issue. So I think it's about separating why you're being weighed. It's not necessarily because of dehydration. So
yes, I'm not desperately concerned about dehydration in the race. It's interesting to see how you dehydrate and see weight loss, steady weight loss. It's not going to leave me worried, particularly if you are not actually broken at that point and clearly ill. If you're very ill and low in weight, then I might be asking other questions at that point to find out why you're ill. But as Jamie said, I'm much more interested in somebody who gains weight. Somebody who's gaining weight is somebody who is taking on too much fluid, or they're not eliminating any of the fluid that they're drinking, both of which can indicate problems, either hypothermia or rhabdo, or both. And we have seen both in the same patient on a couple of occasions, and that's quite scary. That's quite difficult to tackle. So that's it. You're not going to get stopped just because you're losing weight, for certain.
I was under the impression with some percentage of your body weight.
It's just a flag. It's just ask questions. That's all it is. It's an indicator for the marshals to say, let's have a chat with this guy. You know, he's lost 4% so far. That's a fair bit. Let's have a chat. Well, he's well. Fine. Crack on. Get on with it. Get back out.
As I say, what works for you?
So this is something to discuss with your crew as well, though, because the crew can play an important part in this. In some of the ultra teams I go with over 24 hours and some of the long ultras, we're always aware if someone hasn't drunk for a little while. You know, we keep a little check, you know, sort of like a tick box, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever, we do break it down checkpoint to checkpoint. If the crew are aware your runner hasn't drunk for 3 hours, they come into a checkpoint, the 2 bottles you filled up the last checkpoint are still full up. You want to be asking your runner, why haven't you drunk anything? You know, should you be having something? It's a two-way thing between the team and the runner. The runner may say, oh no, I don't need anything, I don't need anything, but he hasn't drunk anything for 4 hours, for God's sake.
I think it's a support tree, that's our job. That's what we do.
Exactly.
What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? That's the 2 things we check.
It doesn't have to be too geeky, there's little notes that
Key things you do.
Yes.
What you're doing and how you feel or how you yeah.
Yes.
And just note it outside of each check.
Very good. Did anyone get that? Yes? It's just the crew should know at the checkpoint what they ate, what they drank, and how they appear.
How they appear.
How they appear, yeah.
And actually, I found that helpful when my crew have taken the notes of what I ate. If, heaven forbid, you decide to do it again, it's actually quite helpful to have those notes to look back to say, oh, actually, I did quite well. This is what I had. Let's make sure we have those things again. Because you want them.
Okay, next question. Yes, Lewis.
Favourite post-race drink?
That's a very good.
Oh, Lewis. I touched it.
It's very good.
You've got to remember I take Grumpy with me. Yeah, you don't have any choice.
Beer.
Beer. Although, right after the West Highland Way, it's definitely not water, but enough water. My mum was there one time with some fizz or something, and I just, like, definitely not wine. I think last year I had about 3 Brewdog nanny steaks, and they were amazing. Like, we just went down the trees, yeah.
I would love to join in with the Prosecco at the end, but I don't get much choice. I managed to get a glass and then that's it. That's it. We're going home. And as one of us has to sulk and he's very tired, we know who loses.
Norma's crew, your challenge for this year is she gets to party.
I'll let you tell him, Julie.
I can tell anyone anything if I need to.
Thinking back about some of the things you've spoken about feeling ill afterwards, I tend to feel reasonably okay until I stop, and then I want to die. And I feel like death usually for at least 24 hours. One of the things I know Helen talks about, getting your runner into the shower, I would definitely say a shower and not a bath. And one of the things that I stupidly did this year was that when I finished, wasn't feeling great, really temperature drops, got into a bath with a hot chocolate, and almost instantly was hypothermic because of the effects that the hot bath was having on me. So hot chocolate would be the drink, not in a bath.
Okay, next question. Yes.
Just one of the items of kit that I mentioned, is map and compass. Is it?
Map and compass, to my knowledge, is not part of the mandatory kit, but useful thing to have. Turned on its head, yes, research the route. People have got lost. People have ended up on Ben Lomond. Seriously. Someone has ended up going up on the Annaghega Ridge in the dark. Yeah. And they missed the turning to go up the staircase. These things happen. So just be aware, talk it through with your... It's not... It's a fairly easy trail to follow, but when you're tired and it's dark and the gloaming's happening and you're just spacing out, you can make mistakes. So you know.
Well, I'm supposed to be curious. I was up to tell the story about last
The crew as well should research the route, and as Helen said, they should certainly know the way in and out of the checkpoints and know where the running is going to be, which direction the running is coming from the checkpoint, and which direction you want to point them going out of the checkpoint. That's
the one-way system, the checkpoints as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Just pass us along. Has anyone got a favourite getting lost story on the Highland Way? Thank you, happy to know.
I live on the trail, so it'd be really embarrassing.
I have. It was way before I ever ran. It was way before I was running. Maybe a couple of years before I started running ultras. I went along West Highland Way for the first time, and I got to Benglass Farm, and this is still there because I pointed it out to people to prove the point. When you come off the trail at Benglass Farm, there's a sort of notice board type thing. And on the notice board there is a picture of a finger and a thumb like this. So it points you, as you face it, directly right. And you go sort of round past these little huts and then over a stile. And you're just off a single track trail. And as you go over the stile directly in front of the direction that the finger had pointed, there is a single track that goes away up a hill past a waterfall. And the other way, which is actually the West Highland Way, there's a sort of dead end to a road. And you think, why would you go on a road to run the West Highland Way trail? So I went up the hill. It's actually quite steep. They do a lot of ice climbing in that little bit if it freezes in the winter, and away up the hill and over, and there was just hills and hills and hills. I had a compass, pointed the compass in the right direction, carried on, only to come down the other side and join the rest of the walkers who just carried on the road. So you can get lost, and that was in daylight.
Yeah, I got lost last year. Touching on a point that James made, I think it's really important if you're running the race this year, no matter how much you think you know the trail, certainly the bits that you're going to do in the dark, do them in the dark. A couple of times I ran from Mulgai to around about 6 miles, just turned and came back and did it, just to see what it was like in the dark, and I was fine with that bit, but I managed to get lost just after Drimmen, and I took a left when I should have took a right. So I took a left, knew it wasn't right, something just didn't feel right. So I started running back, seen the wee sign that said, this is the West Highland Way, so relief. Started running again, and I see all these head torches coming towards me. This isn't right either. So back to the crossroads, and then I stood there for a wee bit, thought, well, I'll wait till somebody comes. I took another chance, and thankfully I got it right. But if you'd told me that I would have done that before the race, I would never have believed it. So it just shows how important it is to actually get out, especially if you're going to be running through the dark twice. Certainly get up onto the top half and do the bits that you are in the dark.
Mine's very minor, but yes, I've taken a wrong turning too. at the Glasgow Ecology plant bit. You turn right up the steps, and I missed that arrow and kept going on, and I probably added on another mile. I mean, I knew straight away this didn't feel right, but when the path disappeared and I ended up in shrubbery, the trouble is, once you've taken that wrong turning, you don't know how far you've gone to know how far you've gone wrong. And I think I probably did another mile in all. But I've not taken that wrong turning again.
Great. There are many stories. Some of them are on the website. Some of them I've just told in quiet corners sometimes. Yeah, because they're too embarrassing. Sometimes. Anyway, but everyone has a record of getting lost at some point. Next question. Yes.
I'm just curious. Were you always a runner? Or did you come to running much later in life?
I ran in the 80s and did a half marathon because it happened to be in our village, and I remember crying for the last mile because I really wanted to do a marathon, and how the hell I could actually ever see me doing twice that time on my feet. When I hit the menopause, I started putting on weight, and I decided I'd got two options: either stop eating or burn the weight off. And so I started running at about 50, and in the next 10 years I completed about 15 marathons and met Sandra Beattie, and sort of, this sounds interesting what she's doing, I wonder if I could do that. And I did my first ultra when I was 60, and I've done, there's something wrong there because I think I've done about 21, but that doesn't feel right in that short time. Sounds an awful lot, yeah. So no, I haven't, but I've always been very, very active. I've always, and I think, if I think about it, I think I enjoyed doing the cross country at school when everybody said you hated it, but I think I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. And I've always had horses, or nursing. I'm always on my feet. I'm a very active person, I think. Yeah. So I haven't always run, but maybe I would have. I wish I'd taken it up a lot earlier. I do wish I'd done it, because I think I probably would achieve a lot more. There's so much more I'd like to do.
But it's really inspiring, especially.
Thank you. I don't see it as that, but thank you.
That's a stage in your life when a lot of women think that they're not able to do as much, because they're always achieving.
I was quite offended at work this week. There was a lady, a fellow nurse, who was sort of saying it's absolutely ridiculous. We shouldn't be working beyond 65. We haven't got the mental ability to do this, that, and the other. And she was talking to an anaesthetist, and I said, "Excuse me, youngster, but some of us can."
Well said. I just have one little question. It vexes a lot of people. Do you do any, or how many build-up races do you do building up to the West Highland Run?
I have a certain gentleman that takes me out of the races if I enter them. I do have a trainer, because I overdo things, as proved in 2012, in 2013. My training race really for the West Highland has always been the fling, but I'm not doing the fling this year because Grumpy is bored with supporting on the route. So this year I'm going to try Kielder. I've done the Glentress Marathon this weekend, and that I see as a training run. I can go out and I'm very, very lucky. I've got the Pentland Hills on my doorstep. I can go and do the same distances and the same type of training there. But to do a race is more focusing. But I'm only doing races like that to, focus on. Everything is focusing towards West Highland. And I've entered lots of things afterwards. And I won't be telling Sir, oh, sorry, hello, you've been watching this. I won't be telling him some of them, because I know perfectly well I'll be stopped from doing them. And I've probably entered too many, I probably will back out from one or two of them.
David,
you're back races, you do.
Last year I did the 100k road race in May, which I felt worked quite well, but the Western Highway race was my goal race, and all my training was geared towards that. This year I'm going to do the Highland Fling, and I've done that for a good few years, so Looking forward to doing that.
And will you run the thing hard or just as a training for the way? Yeah?
No, I'm going to try and run it as hard as my legs can.
Nicola?
I'm not very good at entering races for training purposes. So I'm either running the race as a race or I'm not running the race. I think that's maybe changing a little bit now. I think probably when I did the CCC last year, I ran that more. It felt a bit like I was on holiday. If I confess, I was sitting on the bed in the floor drinking wine. But it was novelty. I hadn't done that before, so I just wanted to just take it in my stride, and I enjoyed it. But typically, it ends up being probably the flying in past years, just because it's on my doorstep more than anything. But I've always run it as a race.
I do stuff because it's fun. So last year was probably a bad example of lead ups to West Island Way if you're trying to be conservative. There were lots of fun things I saw on the calendar. So I did a 100-mile race in Slovenia in January, Gran Canaria, 80 miles in February, Snowdonia, 110 miles in May, and then the West Island Way. Maybe I could have gone faster if I hadn't done those things, but would I have been as happy or got to do the things? No. So for me, it wasn't just about the West Island Way necessarily. It was about doing things that for me were what I enjoyed in the year. So that's what suits you.
Those who are planning races between now and June, I think it's come across here, it's important. Plan what you want out of that race. Are you doing it as a race or are you doing it just as a bit of fun? Both will work. It's possible to run a lot of ultras, but it's not possible to race a lot of ultras, if that makes sense. I think there's a few notes holding, not notes, heads nodding here. No next year. So it's fine to do build-up races, but know exactly what you want out of them before you go into them. Next question. Hi. Back there, yeah? Yes, sir.
Hi, I just wondered if you guys could maybe share with us, we're talking about training, and just maybe some errors and mistakes that you guys have made, and advice that you would maybe give somebody that's away to do this for the first time.
You got all right?
Let's have one big training glaring error each then, yeah.
Okay, you can start then. We'll put the watch on then, yeah.
I think social media is a great thing, but I think it's quite easy to go in and see what's the best guys doing. That's what they're doing, that's what I need to do. I think I've made that mistake in the past of trying to do far too much. I think needs to be a slow progression. You need to start somewhere to get to somewhere. And I think there's nothing, it's a boring word, but you hear people say it all the time, is consistency of training. There's no good doing 100-mile weeks and then having to stop for 3 or 4 weeks because you've picked up an injury or because mentally you've just had enough. I think find what works for you, and remember you need to enjoy it as well. We're not professionals, we all do it because we enjoy it, and there is a mileage or amount of time training that you'll find that you enjoy it, you find it pushes you, and you'll see progression as well.
Okay, thank you.
I've already said that, I overtrained a few years ago. I was running my feet off. I was just loving every minute of it. And just absolutely everything that was going past me, I entered. And I did 7 ultras that year, so that was when I was 60. Did 7 ultras in that year. I was just flying, and I was just loving every minute of it. And Ian advised me quite repeatedly that just watch, you're not doing. Oh no, I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. And then in the January, I got a cold sore, and that woke me up to the fact that this looks as if I'm overdoing it. But again, you can't dictate to anybody what they should be doing because everybody's different. As I say, if I'm not controlled and hauled back, I do too much, and I still do that. It's listen to your own body, but maybe listen to advice from outside as well. Other people can recognise maybe that you're doing too much. I think I'm losing the plot here somewhere. But yeah.
I think, to echo that, it's for me the risk is beating myself up if comparing myself to other people's training. I'm not on Strava, I don't have a smartphone, I think for those things, yeah, I think obviously there's balance, you need to do some training, but it's about saying, exactly as Dave was saying, you know, this is for fun, and I'm not a lesser human because I didn't do as many miles as Norma, though I will have a panic attack when I see how much she's done. Worried that I haven't done enough, but actually for me, my kind of plan is just different, and different is okay.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add other than overtraining. That's always one. The only thing I would say is that when you do get an injury, because you will get an injury, you've not had one before, at some point, it tends to hit you when you're running well and you least expect it. So you need to work quite hard to be disciplined, not to get yourself overtrained in the first place, because the injury is where it comes to the surface and it's already too late by that point. So you've got to keep it in check.
Got time for a couple more questions. I see another hand over there. Yes.
What kind of cross training do you do, if you do any at all?
The question you do is, what kind of cross training do any of the people do?
I'd say the majority of my training is cross training. Lots of hill walking, lots of mountaineering, and boxing are my three main things. One is that I don't get angry.
Hiking, and then the occasional bit on the bike, but sort of hill walking in the hills generally. Not necessarily running in the hills, a lot of walking in the hills.
Generally, I don't do any cross training unless I'm injured. I had a problem with my glute this winter, so I was told that I could cycle as much as I wanted, and it made it worse. So for me, again, everybody's different. Cross training doesn't really work for me. But one thing I would say, if you're doing the West Stirling race for your first time, spending time on your feet and doing a lot of hill walking is something that I found the first year I did it really helped, just to sort of conditioning your legs. And if you think that you're going to be running for 95 odd miles, then I'll be the first to shake your hand. You'll be surprised just how much walking that you'll be doing in the second half of the race. If the guys at the front, some of them are walking, then trust me, you'll be walking as well. So that's something I would advise. And just to touch on as well, I think a lot of people are guilty when they're training for the race. If you're someone that keeps a training diary and you log all the miles, especially if you're coming from a sort of marathon background, you should be doing less miles, because it takes longer running on the trails, you do a lot more hills, so don't be worried that your mileage is actually down. I would consider doing it more by hours trained rather than miles run.
I'm appalling, I don't do any cross training, but I do consider that my job's my cross training, because I'm on my feet so much at work, and I reckon I've always argued that I couldn't do my job if I didn't have my running, and I couldn't do my running if I didn't have my job. I know I should do more, but got away with it. I do strength and conditioning every couple of weeks with a trainer again, otherwise I wouldn't even do any of that.
I think there's something about core work as well for me, kind of having that toughness. Maybe it's psychological as well, to just feel tough, gets you mentally through quite a lot.
I think if you're not having any of your problems with injuries or aches and pains, you can get away with just running. But if you are experiencing ongoing sort of little muscle niggles, imbalances, do go and see a personal trainer or someone just to get sorted out from sort of shoulder down to the toes. But if you haven't got any inherent weaknesses that need strengthening up by whatever means, many options are available. Helen, you had your hand up just now. Oh, it's John, sorry. Yes.
Do you have one tip for hauling yourself out of the inevitable low that you're going to hit at some point in the race?
Getting it out of the back, John said, do you have one tip for the inevitable hole that you'll kind of find yourself falling into at some point in the race?
I'll start. I think you're doing well if you only have one. I think that's where I was touched on earlier, that if you've done enough mental training, then you've got mental techniques you can rely on and fall back to. I just count to 100 again and again and again. That seems to work for me, but everybody has their own thing. And I think you tend to, if you've entered the West Stirling race, you'll have done plenty or some decent length ultras before, so you'll have had that before you got through it the last time. So remind yourself, you could be at your work, you could be taking out the bins, you could do something you want to do. So, but everybody's different, Norma.
Not something I'd ever really thought about, but I've obviously got the bloody mindedness and the determination. I've dug myself out of a fair few holes over the years. The first year being a prime example, I did it on 1.5 legs, and there was all I could think was that goblet. I'm getting that bloody goblet. That's all that really, you know. It's actually exactly what you were saying, Jamie. Do I want to win this? Well, winning was getting a goblet, and if I'd stopped, there was no bloody goblet.
Yeah, for me, it's never been about winning anything. It's if I was winning, would I quit? I could be in last, but if I was winning, would I quit? That answer is usually no, unless I'm competing Coke. Yeah, I think like Dave said, it's having that confidence in yourself to know it will pass, and you don't know when, and you don't know how, and you don't know why, but that low will pass, and it's just being able to ride it out, I suppose. And I talk to myself aloud quite a lot. Exactly the sort of things you were saying to yourself. I want that goblet. Scream it, shout it, tell the trees, tell the loch, tell whatever you need to remind yourself that you're here for a purpose, and that purpose is that goblet.
And who entered you?
Who paid that fee?
I also talk out loud a lot. And it's, yeah, sometimes you go around the corner and there's just a group of walkers coming towards you. Hi. That usually gets you out the hole. But in a main sense, I think you mentioned it earlier, Adrian, it's just constantly coming back to that, kick yourself in that moment, and I'll say things like, I mean, it's really awful, I just don't allow my mind to wander left or right. And sometimes it's like, look at your feet, get back down to your feet, or look at that stone, or look like it's just an in the moment thing that gets you through it, and then before you know it, your gel or whatever you've had just picks you back up, or you're at a checkpoint, and it just passes.
I'm allowed to give mine. Last one I did 3 years ago, when I had a bit of a problem, quite a long time, I had 2 words I kept saying to myself, and that was Chris Moon. Those of you who know Chris, had a bit of an accident, blown up by a landmine basically, lost one leg and one arm. He did the Highland Way in 2009. I remember I wasn't there that year, I was across in Belgium at a 100k race. But Darren and I wasn't running, I was helping out, and Darren and I were talking to each other. Darren, bless him. And I remember getting a text from Darren halfway through the race saying, Chris Moon has just changed his leg. He has a prosthetic leg, and he actually had a spare one with him in his kit bag. Support crew, take notes, spare legs. And he actually changed his leg halfway through, and I just kept this vision. And those who have met Chris, he's just got no self-pity whatsoever. You know, his life has totally changed in the blink of an eye, but he's just up for the next challenge any day of his life, basically. Yeah, that's right. So, Chris Moon, let that be your mantra sometimes, okay? Take one final question, because we've been kicked out of here in 10 minutes. You've been a very patient audience, thank you. One burning question anybody's got?
For David.
Yes.
I was going to ask, what do you do on the Friday before the race?
Ooh.
Panic. I find it a really difficult day. It's the longest day of the year. It just seems to drag in. This year I decided to go to work in the morning. I've got an office job, so it wasn't anything physical, but it was just enough to take my mind off. And then I planned to sleep in the afternoon, but I couldn't go to sleep. So you're just pottering about, checking your kit for about the 17th time, and then just winder away time. But I do find the day before race is difficult.
I'm the opposite. I actually really think I do ultras for the days immediately preceding and following an ultra. It's just total justified slovenly laziness. So the Friday before, I sleep in as late as I can, putter around, I treat myself to whatever carbs are going, feel no guilt about it, eat whatever I want, and then I try and nap, usually from about 7 p.m. until 10 to get as good of a nap as I can. Often by that time I'm quite anxious and excited, so I don't always sleep, but even just being horizontal for that few hours I think is helpful, knowing that you're then pulling at least an all-nighter, if not 2.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that, just as little as possible would be. Well, I once worked actually when I did my first one in 2016 in the morning. I worked from home, but it was enough that I was on calls all the way through until about 2 o'clock, and then people started to arrive at the house, and I wouldn't really do that again, so last year I just did nothing.
Enjoy it.
I managed to get a little bit of a sleep in the afternoon because I just try and treat it like as if I'm going to be starting a night shift that night, which is a big advantage. But I don't get a good sleep, even if it's only 20 minutes or so. It's still better than nothing. It's again lying quietly, and the rest of the time is panic.
I this year, for whatever reason, usually I've had enough sleep before. I think I like ultras as well because I tend to cope quite well with sleep deprivation, which is why I think like the multi-day races suit me quite well. Give me 250 ml of Coca-Cola and I'll be awake for days. This year, for whatever reason, coming into Bridgewater, I was exhausted. My nap clearly hasn't worked as well. And I curled up on the trail for 2 minutes, had my support crew, it was at the checkpoint, literally laid down on the tarmac for 2 minutes, fell asleep like that, and slept like a brick for 2 minutes, and then my mate woke me up, and I felt great. So if you're desperately desperate, I wouldn't say sleep without someone there to make sure you wake up and that you're safe wherever you are. Sometimes you need a kiss.
Okay, well, we're running out of time now. If anyone has a desperate question that hasn't been asked tonight, dare I mention, put it on the Facebook page. You might get a lot of answers you don't want to hear. But no, you might get some serious answers out of that as well. Thanks so much for being a great audience. I want to thank our panel here. Mr. James, I think you're still here. Well done, James. Thank you very much. And to John and Helen, of course, thank you very much. And to Sean. And in true Olympic fashion, I'll ask us all to reconvene at Mulgai on the third Saturday night in June.